Hello everyone, greetings from VNR JYOTHI Institute of Engineering and Technology. This is Manohar Reddy, Department of Cybersecurity, Data Science and AIDS. Today in this session we are going to discuss about the concept of magnetic disk structure and working principle. Magnetic disk structure and working principle. So to understand this magnetic disk structure and working principle, first we have to know the definition of mass storage management. What is meant by mass storage management and what are the types of mass storage devices? So this all the topics comes under the disk management concept, disk management function in the operating system. So what is meant by mass storage management? So mass storage in operating system refers to the persistence long-term storage of large amount of data. So it leads to defines that what large amount of data has to be stored on the particular system or particular disk or particular device, whatever it may be. So here the mass storage in operating system refers to the persistent long-term storage of large amount of storage data, large amount of data. That distincts from volatile primary memory like RAMs. So it always distincts from volatile primary memories like RAM. So the secondary memory, so we can call it as a secondary memory where we can store the large amount of data and long-term storage of the data. Suppose if you have any pen drive, if you have any hard disk, external hard disk, you can keep that in the long-term storage of the data. So the mass storage is nothing but where we can store the data in long term, where we can store the data in large amount of data. So that is completely different from the volatile primary memory like RAM. So that is nothing but mass storage. And here the devices which are supported to store the large amount of data for the long period of time, that devices we can call it as mass storage devices. That devices we can call it as mass storage devices. So devices such as hard disk drives, solid state drives and magnetic tapes from the bulk of computer secondary storage for storing programs, files and other operating system itself. So these are all some mass storage devices which are going to store permanently and store large amount of data for the long period of time. So it stores programs, it stores files and it stores all the related files of the operating system itself. So here we can say that all the which devices are storing the large amount of data for the long period of time. Comparatively primary memories like RAM, those are all called as mass storage devices. Here we can see the examples: hard disk drives and solid state drives and magnetic tapes are all the somewhat examples of the mass storage devices. So here out of these all the examples, the hard disk drive storage HDD is an example magnetic disk. So magnetic disk is a storage device which is used to store data permanently and which is used to store data, large amount of data. So here the common example is hard disk drive. So magnetic disk example is what? Hard disk drive, which is used in computers for storing operating system, files and applications and programs, whatever it may be. All these comes into the storage of the device called as magnetic disk. So there are two types of devices are available. One is temporary storage and which are storing for the shortest amount of data, and the second one is what? Storing permanent data and large amount of data. So here the magnetic disk comes under this category, which stores the data permanently and which stores the data in large amount of data. So here if you see, the magnetic disk contains what? Spindle, read or write head, controller, actuator arm, platter. These are all we can call it as a component of magnetic disk. Components. So here if you see, the hard disk drive is a non-volatile storage device that stores data on spinning magnetic platters using write or read head. So how it is working? So we, based on this definition, we can say that it is a non-volatile device and which stores the data on spinning magnetic platters using a read or write head. So which we discussed in the next slides. So here the main components of the magnetic disks. So what are the main components? So platters, so platter, spindle, read or write head, actuator arm, tracks, sectors, cylinders, these are all some of the main components that are running on the magnetic disk. Without these all components, magnetic disk will not be work and disk cannot be performing the read or write operation. So always we use it to always the disks, magnetic disks are used to perform not only for storing the data, and large amount of data, it is also performing for read or write operations also. Read or write operations, that means you want to read the data from the disk and you want to write the data into the disk. You want to read the data from the disk and you want to write the data into the disk. So how you are going to be performing the read operation, how you are going to perform the write operation, all this comes with the help of these main components: platters, spindle, read or write head, actuator arm, tracks, sectors and cylinders. So what are the platters? So the platters are nothing but what? Circular discs made up of metal or glass. So a circular disc which is made up of a metal or glass and which is coated with a magnetic material, a magnetic material. If you can see this diagram, this is the platter. You can see this diagram, you can see this platter. So this platter is coated with magnetic material. So magnetic material stores data as a magnetic signal. So there the data is storing is in the form of magnetic signals. And second one is what? Spindle. It rotates the platters. It always rotating this platter. So the platter is nothing but what? The plate. So right. So the spindle rotates these platters at a high speed. The speed is 5400 to 7200 RPMs, revolution per minute. And read or write head. So here you can see the read or write head. This is the read or write head which moves over the disk surface, and read and writes data using magnetic fields. So that magnetic material, the read and writes data using magnetic fields. And fourth one, actuator arm. So actuator arm is nothing but this one, which controls movement of the read or write head, and the tracks the circular paths on the platter, where data is stored. So the data is on the platter, but in the platter all the tracks are available. The track is nothing but circular path on the particular platter where data is stored. And sectors are nothing but what? Smallest storage unit on the track. So out the platter is nothing but what? Like this. In that platter, this is nothing but each and every one is nothing but a sector. These are all the sectors. So each and every sector will have some storage unit of track. Each and every smallest storage unit of track. And last one, cylinders, the group of tracks. This type of group of tracks are forms a cylindrical shape. So group of tracks are aligned vertically across all the platters. So these are all the main components that are running on the magnetic disk to perform the read or write operations. Each and every component will have some importance about it. So platters are coating with the magnetic material which stores data in the form of magnetic signals, and the spindle rotating always with the platters, and read or write head moves over the disk surface, and actuator arm controls the movement, and the tracks storing the data, and the sectors small storage unit of the track, and cylinders are performing this vertical shape aligned with the vertical across platters. So if you see the structure, whenever the arm assembly, this is the arm assembly, this is the spindle. If you see the spindle always rotating, and this is the platter, this is the nothing but what? Platter. It is a flat surface, and on that platter, if you see the on this platter, if you see the sectors, and this is the track. Each and every one each and every small storage unit on the particular track is what? Sector. So whenever it is vertically aligned, it is forming a cylindrical shape. So arm assembly always moving the read or write head onto the platter. So whenever you perform the read or write operations, always it is keeping on the platter. So it controls the movement of the head. It controls the movement of the platter. The working principle of magnetic disk is based on storing and retrieving the data used in magnetic properties. So platter is having the flat surface where the data is stored in the form of magnetic signals. So always whenever you are performing the read or write operations, the disk contains one or more rotating platters coated with the magnetic material. So the data is represented in binary forms, zeros and ones, by magnetizing small regions on the disk surface in different directions. So that small regions on the disk surface is what? Tracks. So when data needs to be written, if you are performing you want to performing the write of the data, so data needs to be written, the read or write head generates a magnetic field that alters the polarity of these regions according to the binary data. So that magnetic field alters the polarity of the region. That means the direction of that shape is according to the binary data. For reading purpose, the head sends the magnetic patterns on the disk and converts them back into the electrical signals. So whenever you are performing the read or write operation, it converting all the signals into magnetic signals, and reading performance, when you are performing the reading operation, magnetic patterns on the disk are converting them into electrical signals. So whenever performing the write operation, it converts into the magnetic fields, magnetic signals, and whenever performing the read operation, it converts into the electrical signals. So the platters continuously rotating at high speed. The platters are continuously rotating at high speed and allows data to pass under the read or write head. The time required to access data is depending upon the factors such as seek time. So how many tracks that are utilized for the seek time. So each and every one is what? Movement of the head to the current track. So rotational latency and transfer time, for all these are all the factors such as seek time, rotational latency and transfer time. These are all to access the data is depending upon the parameters. So how much time it is taking for the read operation, how much time it is taking for the write operation is depending upon these following factors. What are those factors? The factors are what? Such as seek time and the rotational latency and the transfer time. These are all what? The factors which are using for the data to access the read or write operations. And this mechanism enables efficient and permanent storage of data in magnetic disk. So this mechanism enables efficient and permanent storage of data in magnetic disks. In simple word, data is arranged in circles, that is nothing but tracks, we can say that, and a needle moves to read or write performance, and a disk spins so that the data becomes under the needle. So always the data is moving on the platter, the disk spins so that the data comes under the needle. So the working of magnetic disk involves the following steps. First one is what? Data representation. So data is stored in the form of binary form, zeros and ones. So magnetic coating is magnetized in different directions to the represents bits. So it is always focusing on the representation of bits. So magnetic coating is magnetized in different directions to represents bits. Writing data. Second parameter is what? Writing data. The write head generates magnetic field. This field changes the polarity of small regions on the disk. So whenever it performs the write head generates magnetic field, these regions are representing binary data. And reading the data. So the read heads senses magnetic changes and converts them back into the electrical signals, that is zeros and ones. And the disk rotation. So platters continuously rotating and data passes under the write or read head. So whenever the disk is rotating, always platters are continuously rotating, the data passes under the read or write head. And the access time components are what? Seek time, rotational latency, transfer time. So what is meant by seek time? Time to move the head to current track. time to move head to current track. And rotational latency is nothing but what? Waiting for sector to rotate under head. Waiting for sector to rotate under head. And transfer time is what? Time to read or write data. Transfer time is what? Read or write data. So these are all the working components that are going to perform on the magnetic disk whenever you want to performing the read or write operations on the magnetic disk. So data is stored in the form of binary forms, zeros and ones, and whenever you performing the write operation, the field has been changing the polarity of the direction and it represents the magnetic signals. And the reading data, whenever performing the read operations, that magnetic signals are converting into the electric signals. And whenever the disk is rotating, automatically the platters continuously rotating, data is passing under that platters, under the read or write head. And access time components, receive time, rotational latency, transfer time, all this comes under this magnetic disk working components. So this is all about the disk. This is all about the magnetic disk structure and working principle. You can use the following reference links for more data, more reference purpose, and you can use the following textbooks also for referring more concept on this particular topic. Thank you all.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe VNR Digital Learning Resource YouTube channel.